In the following video, we're covering viruses. What are viruses, the viral life cycle, types of viruses, how the body fights them, antibiotics and viruses, and vaccines and treatment. Let's begin with figuring out what is a virus. Viruses are microscopic infectious agents, so small they're even tinier than bacteria. But, unlike bacteria, viruses are not truly alive. They cannot grow, make energy, or reproduce on their own. Instead, they are genetic parasites, hijacking host cells to make copies of themselves. A virus is essentially a small package of genetic material, DNA or RNA, wrapped in a protein coat called a capsid. Some will also have a lipid envelope stolen from the host cell. There are three main viral shapes: helical, which is rod-shaped, the tobacco mosaic virus; icosahedral, which is symmetric, the adenovirus; and complex, which is a combination of both, the T4 bacteriophage. So viruses overall are not truly alive. They hijack host cells. They contain genetic material, a capsid, and occasionally an envelope, and can only reproduce inside a host cell. There are many shapes and sizes to viruses. Now let's jump into the viral life cycle, which is how viruses infect cells. So the viral life cycle has 5 main stages: attachment, entry, replication, assembly, and release. We'll begin with attachment, where the virus will bind to a specific receptor on the cell's surface. Here we have an animation of that happening. Then we jump into entry, where the virus fuses with the cell membrane or gets engulfed through endocytosis. Some viruses even inject their genetic material directly into the cell, like bacteriophages. On the left, we have a virus entering the cell, and on the right, we have a bacteriophage. Then we jump into replication, which once inside, the virus hijacks the host ribosomes and enzymes to copy its genome and make viral proteins. RNA viruses like coronavirus use an enzyme called RNA polymerase to replicate. Now assembly, which new viral particles are built inside the host cell. So here we have the particles being built inside of the cell. Then we jump into the release, where the viruses burst out either by lysis, which is breaking the cell open, or by budding, which is stealing part of the membrane. Let's dive into different types of viruses: DNA viruses, RNA viruses, retroviruses, and bacteriophages. The DNA viruses use the host enzymes to copy their genome. An example is smallpox, herpes, and HPV. RNA viruses are similar to DNA viruses, but mutate faster because they do not proofread their copies. An example is the flu, COVID-19, and measles. Retroviruses convert their RNA into DNA using an enzyme called reverse transcriptase, inserting themselves into the host genome. An example is HIV. Bacteriophages infect bacteria and can transfer genes between them, affecting antibiotic resistance. Here we have the T4 bacteriophage. Let's explore how the body fights viruses through innate immune response, adaptive immune response, and memory cells. So in innate immune response is the first line of defense. Cells like macrophages and natural killer cells detect and destroy infected cells. Here's a macrophage detecting and destroying infected cells. Adaptive immune response is where specialized B cells make antibodies that neutralize viruses. And then memory cells, after an infection, some immune cells remember the virus, providing long-term immunity. This is what happens in a vaccine. Now, why do antibiotics not work on viruses? Let's jump in. So antibiotics target bacterial cell walls, ribosomes, and enzymes, none of which viruses have. That's why we use antiviral drugs instead. Vaccines and treatment: live attenuated vaccines, inactivated vaccines, and mRNA vaccines. Live attenuated vaccines use a weakened virus. An example is the vaccine for measles and mumps. Inactivated vaccines use killed viruses. An example is polio. And mRNA vaccines teach cells to make viral proteins. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.